Columbia, this is... Houston, AOS, over.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the TKW Podcast. We have the trio back together once again. It's been a minute, but I am Anthony Corbo, and I'm joined here today by Kyle Maggio.
I'm just so happy to be back on this podcast.
It's comforting. It's comforting. Go follow him at Kyle Maggio. Also joining us today, we've got, as always, Bryan Gibberman.
Terrible day. Kyle's back on the podcast.
It's a sad day for us all. You can follow Bryan at Bryan Gibberman. You can follow me at Anthony Corbo. You can follow the Knicks Wall at the Knicks Wall on Twitter. TKW Podcast there. Please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel on whatever podcast platform you're choosing. Hit us with the 5 stars. Hit us with that review. Give us a subscription. We love you even more for it. And finally, head to theknickswall.com. We'll be talking to Tyler Marko later on today about his piece about the Knicks potentially looking to, or what the Knicks, maybe just party with Frank Ntilikina would be the best move for both sides. We're also going to talk to Mike Cortez later on in the program, just to keep everyone updated on the NCAA Tournament. But before we get to all of that, the Knicks lost the game this afternoon, a game that kind of snuck up on me. These Sunday afternoon games always do that, but 124 to 113. It was pretty competitive through, it was in spurts, but the game stayed pretty competitive up until about the fourth quarter. It was exciting to watch for once. The Garden crowd seemed to be into it. I don't know, what were your guys' takeaways from today's game?
Yeah, I know Brian's going to disagree with me considerably, so I wanted to nip this in the butt at the beginning of the podcast. I saw a lot of angry Deandre Jordan stuff today, and I thought, while normally I would agree with you guys, I thought just today was not the game. I thought even if the team as a whole, I know he's going to bring up the plus minus, I feel it in my bones, but even if he wasn't contesting every defensive shot, I just thought he was doing enough positively to justify being in the game this long. And I understand the Mitchell Robinson stuff. I'm not saying I necessarily agree. I'm just saying I don't think this is the day to slam Deandre. I saw a lot of angry stuff today about it, but I thought he was pretty damn. He had a lot of energy in that first half.
Yeah, early on, they were running the ball through him a lot too. That was
he was moving the ball really well too. It wasn't like things were sticking. So I understand that the defense isn't where you want it to be all the time, despite he had a couple of blocks. But I thought he was doing enough across the board today to offset that and sort of justify Fizdale letting him play those precious minutes over Mitchell Robinson, who we all love dearly, and we'll get to him. But aside from him, Dotson is just I'd like to spend some time on Dotson on this pod because he's just very, very impressive with his consistency and what he does with really never dribbling the ball. He's either in transition going for a layup, or he kind of reminds me of like that old Ray Allen, Rip Hamilton, never stops moving without the ball. Every time he seems to pop up and catch it, he's coming off a screen and just catching and shooting. It's just very smart basketball that he's been playing. And I'm not going to say anything about Mudiay's defensive effort tonight, which was not good. But again, I think offensively, just his scoring was a plus tonight. 26, 6, and 7. He was actually pretty good offensively, at least. So Kadeem was fun. He had a nice little run towards the end of that game to keep the Knicks in it, despite them really certain. They just kind of got outclassed by the Clippers down the stretch. And that's basically it for me. I think.
let's root back onto DeAndre Jordan, because he really did look solid in this game today. He looked pretty confident. You can't really. He ends up being by far like the worst on the team with the minus 19, but the 20 points, the 13 rebounds are good in and of themselves. I just thought that he was what the Knicks got off to a really bad start today. They were down like 8-0, I think, at the very beginning of it, and it was really him and Dot, like you were saying. Dotson's like shooting, picking up. He missed his first couple of shots, then got it going. Just him burying the ball a couple of times really started to build them out, and then honestly, got it early on. It was Hazonia too, and DeAndre Jordan finding a good passing connection, just kind of knowing where each other were going to be, and that kind of got the Knicks back into it early. And then there's a couple of other things that happened down the stretch, but that's what we were looking at early. Bryan, did you have any thoughts from earlier on in the game? Do you have anything about like Dodd, what you saw from him out there? What really made him get the offense going?
Well, let me go here. Here's a general thought on DeAndre Jordan, kind of responding to what Kyle said. He's kind of what people thought Enes Kanter was, except his offense is actually more impactful and valuable. Like he's still a good offensive player, and he has value on that end. Now, I don't think it cancels out the stuff on the other end, because just what he stylistically does on defense, you have to have guards that are really elite at containing dribble penetration to be able to let him sink back like he does. Now, maybe if you wanted to try that with a certain point guard that got hurt tonight and give him a chance, and maybe how he controls the opponent's lead ball handler, then how Jordan sinks back so much and doesn't contest, maybe that works a little bit better. But since the bald guy with glasses refuses to ever try anything else besides just throwing Mudiay out there and going Mudiay, we don't ever get to find things like this out or learn anything.
Now here's
I've watched Emmanuel Mudiay play too much, and it's stupid. When they're 14 and 60. We should be evaluating different things and learning about stuff. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, here's the thing. I agree with you generally on just exactly everything you just said. That topic, I really do. Mudiay started this game looking real bad. I mean, he was just, and you still see it in his passing throughout the game too, where he's just, he'll dribble himself into a corner, and then he'll be able to pull something off and really like kind of hit a wild shot at some point, or a long two, or one of his signature like up and under layups. But his passing, he'll just like dribble into somewhere and then throw it into, just hope to God it doesn't get picked off before it makes it to the top of the key again. But that being said, like, he really, like, I couldn't find, when he did take the shots, the big shots throughout the game, especially when the game was tied a couple of times, he was able to make them. And today, I know that the time is valuable, especially now that we're under 10 games left in the season. But you had Frank get hurt again. You had Kadeem Allen in big foul trouble early on in the game. He had 3 fouls like in the first quarter, I think. It was. I'm not mad about Mudiay playing and getting a lot of minutes in a game like this today.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him playing today. And it's the same thing like the Jordan Mitchell Robinson. Oh, well, today he was playing the Clippers. I see. It's bigger than today. Like the last 10 games since the Suns game when Jordan came back from injury, he's playing 26 minutes a night. Mitchell Robinson is playing 20 minutes a night. Mudiay is playing 29 minutes. When Trier's been around, he's only playing 24. Lance Thomas is averaging 16.3 minutes and has played in every single game in the last 10. Luke Cornett has only played in 5 games, and in those games he's averaging 10.2 minutes. Like, this is the shit that Kurt Rambis was doing at the end of the season when he was coaching, until Melo and Robin Lopez went to him and went, look, you're being an idiot, and start playing different players because the season's over and there's no reason for us to be out there. Like, we're focusing on a bunch of people. Now, there's injury stuff, and some of this is inevitable since, like, Dennis Smith got hurt, Trier got hurt. So, like, I get it to an extent. But why is DeAndre Jordan playing over Luke Cornett right now? Like, what purpose does that serve for the future of your basketball team? Why is Lance Thomas playing over? Say, okay, you can't play. You want to keep playing Jordan. Why wouldn't you go back to playing Mitchell Robinson and Luke Cornett together a little bit and just letting someone go? What is Lance Thomas? What are we doing?
So I'm gonna. I don't know how much I actually believe in the following that I'm going to say, but I'm going to sort of play devil's advocate because I want to present the theory to you guys. and it's going to break. It's one part what Bryan said pretty much the last time I was on the pod, and it's one part something that I read about, and I know I'll get slammed for it, but the Nets. So there was something about the Nets that I had read. Somebody either put it on Twitter or it was from an article. If anybody remembers this, let me know what it is. But basically alluding to, them doing right by some players with some 10-day contracts that turned into guarantees for the rest of the year or something. And basically, it was like the start of the Nets wanting to, do things for just player benefit so it would look good to other people, free agents and whatnot. So I'm going to tie that into what Bryan said about Fizdale maybe being a stars coach versus like an X's and O's guy. And I don't know, maybe this is their way of trying to seem, more player friendly. Maybe this is their way. Maybe this is why there's the insistence on Mudiay, and there's the insistence on, letting Deandre get his burn at the end of the year. Maybe there's something to that. I don't know how much I believe in it.
Kadeem Allen and Lance. So I get that to an extent. And that's actually the best and most reasonable excuse from Fizdale's perspective that doesn't just make him look like a complete dolt. Like, that's actually some reasoning, and I can understand that.
The reason I bring that real quick, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Lance Thomas and Kadeem Allen went into the game before Frank today.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
Well. In fairness, Kadeem, I think, has at least earned that a little bit. But the Lance thing, I'll give you. I understand what you're saying. It's just the thing I was going to say too about the reason I brought up that point about Fizdale with the maybe doing this all as a show for like the players is just his comments sometimes seem to be a little extravagant, and I just think that's his way of cluing us into what he's thinking. And I don't know how much I believe it. I'm just presenting the option. Like today, he made a big deal. We had to do it for Deandre. Basically all our guys were in for him. And it just seemed like it was just a little much to be, pushing it that forward. It seemed he's really telling the story.
We know he's a culture coach. That's pretty much. I mean, that's what he said all season. That's what he's preached, is that he's a guy who's trying to establish and build a culture in New York. That's been the language that's been thrown around a lot. But another part of it is that we're talking about guys here who are all on. I think it ties into the player friendly thing too. We're talking about guys at this point who are all expiring at the end of the season. Their contracts run only up until July 1st or whatever, options or anything. Lance Thomas is probably going to be gone with his $1 million guarantee for next year. It's I definitely could also see this being kind of a like you're saying, kind of similar to what the Nets have been doing too, where it's just these guys are here, they're aware of what's going on from here. I'm sure Fizdale has talked to a lot of the veteran players to let them know that they're just going to showcase them for the time being. They don't have any promises I can make to them, beyond this point. But Fizdale and the whole culture movement with this team, it totally strikes me as him saying, I don't know if you'll be back next year, but we'll play you for, what you have now, so that way you can sign somewhere else.
They've given Mudiay more than enough time and a chance. He started 38 games this year, 52 games the past two seasons. In March, he's shooting 40%. This is how bad he is. He's shooting 40% from three and 90% from the line in March, and he's only averaging 13.2 points on 11.5 shots. Do you know how hard it is to have those percentages and be scoring that little amount of points on that amount of shots?
I know. I feel like, look, I feel like he gets a lot of grief. A lot of it rightfully, but I think sometimes it's a little bit much too. I think he is just judging by his, his total body of work this season offensively. He did take a pretty drastic step forward in his efficiency. It's not. I don't think it makes him good enough to be a starting caliber player or a very good player. I'm just saying. I think he is actually a passable NBA player now, and he does do some good things. I just think back to your point. It's not enough for me to invest in it. What you said about, he's gotten enough time. I think that's true. I think wherever he goes next, and I hope it's not here, but wherever he goes next, I think they know what he is now. He's just a rotational piece. I think he's just a 7th, 8th man off the bench, but I don't think he needs more time now. This should have been more time for Frank and whatnot.
On average, how many just strictly offensive possessions do we think the Knicks get per game? Like just the Knicks, what do you think would be a reasonable amount?
I'm real bad at estimating this kind of thing.
They took, today they took 86 shots, but they had 13 offensive rebounds and 14 turnovers. So right around probably 85, 86
I
is
would
the
say
amount.
that's probably a fair barometer of today's game.
Okay. So even within that, yes, Mudiay had 26 points, but he also had 9 missed shots and 3 turnovers. That's 12 possessions gone. So you're talking about an eighth of your possessions that you lose when he has the ball in his hands that come with a negative outcome. And that's to get 26 points on 19 shots, and his assists were higher. And this was a high-end game for him. You're not getting this regularly.
Sure.
The Nuggets game, he had how many? He had 21 points, but he also had, and that game was the best example of my problem with him. He had the numbers, but if you went back and watched and how that game kind of functioned and played out, whenever the Nuggets were kind of spacing out and getting a lead, it was almost directly related to how Mudiay was functioning in the game. So in this game, he scored 21 points, but he had 12 missed shots and 3 turnovers. That's 15 possessions ending because of him with nothing good coming out of it, either a missed shot or a turnover. And that's what's pretty much happening every single time the ball is in his hands a lot, and he's not generating enough positivity on those other possessions to balance it out or make it worth it. And that's an issue that's why I don't even think he's really a rotation player still. I don't think you can really function in a positive manner with him having the ball in his hands as much as he does and all the negative stuff that comes with it. I don't think there's an even balance with it.
Did you see what his plus minus from today's game was? It was exactly 0. It's just I know that's not the true barometer to go by, but it's a game where he scores 26 points, has 7 assists, and only 3 turnovers, and he still musters only a 0 in that category. It's his, and you're right with everything you're saying. I think that's the biggest tell against him is just how many possessions he has. Every player is going to miss shots, and his percentages haven't been awful lately, but even to have such a mixed impact from time to time, and just how many plays he could end up giving up in the end on that end up ending because of him is a telling issue. One of the players that we're always fascinated with on the podcast is of course Kevin Knox, but he suffered an injury today on a play that looked like it was kind of annoying, that play, and seeing it not get called like that, because that's the exact thing that Mitchell Robinson got called on over and over and over again early in the season, when he would step into the shooter space on a 3-point shot. Knox put the shot up, and Lou Williams stepped right in between his legs, and Knox ends up turning his ankle, didn't return. Do we have anything further about that?
They think it's not as severe as they thought it was when he was really limping off into the locker room.
It looked like it could have gone.
I believe they said, I think it's day to day. I think Fizdale said.
Okay.
So it's more of just a bad twist, if anything. It doesn't look like a sprain or anything worse than that.
So we lose him, but he kind of had another slow start to the game, but really was heating up around when the injury took place. I mean, is there anything that we gleaned from Kevin Knox today?
I don't know. Not really. I mean,
It's more the same.
he shot the ball all right. Just a very okay, normal game.
But like this is exactly, the issue that we're talking about at the top of the show, the issue with Fizdale playing his his veteran players, overplaying them, maybe not giving enough minutes to the other guys. You're seeing these durability issues. We're going to talk about Frank in a minute too, but Ntilikina gets hurt today again after missing so much time since the beginning of January. You have Knox get injured here. It's I just I wonder if his mentality here is that he has to play so many of these vets anyway that he's just gonna showcase them all and give them their send off or whatever it may be.
This has been Knox's best month since, what was it, December or November, whenever he won the award for Rookie of the Month. He's shooting, his splits are 42, 47, 78. He's had more points than shots and like 4 out of the last 5 or 5 out of the last 6 games. I want it again links back to the playing time thing, but I like when he's running 2-man game with Mitchell Robinson, and we don't get to see that nearly enough because of how the rotation is staggered. They don't really play all that much together, but that's something we've seen Knox have success with at times this year, and it'd be good and important for them to continue to get that chemistry and learning and getting a feel for each other. But it's good to, even though a lot of it's just basically him hitting a bunch of above the break threes, it's good to see that he's capable of having stretches where he shoots like this. And now we've had 2 significant ones of these this season, and now maybe going, hopefully as soon as next year, there's hope that there is a 38, 39, 40% 3-point shooter in that body. And if there is, that he becomes, that's where you start to see him potentially get to hit somewhere near or close to his ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, he takes exactly the right shots. I think that's what I'm most encouraged about. Like, he takes all the shots you'd want, like a modern, small ball 4 type like he is to take. He's taking threes, he's catching and shooting. He's normally, not dribbling a lot or pulling up from, deep. Or he's getting right to the rim. He's still struggling, going left and finishing there if it's not a floater. But that's exactly, that's like Morey ball 101. Just get right into the paint, get right to the rim, or just shoot the 3. And I think that's very encouraging. So, yeah, now seeing a second month of this, because, once we hit 2019, it was pretty rough there for a while. But, having 2 big months isn't nothing. And for the kind of player that he projects to be, it is encouraging. And for me, I'm just, again, encouraged by the shots. It's not like he's struggling because he's taking dumb shots. He's taking the smart shots. They're just not going in.
Yeah, but I mean, his confidence coming back. He's looking for his shot a little bit more. He looks a little bit less passive out there, a little bit more active. That's really exciting to see. And there was just one player in particular I noticed earlier today before he got injured where, he just passed the ball off, got the cut, went inside, or he got the ball. I forgot exactly where it was, but he just drove in and he didn't make it to the rim quite like we like him to. He didn't quite get up there and take any contact or anything, but hooked it up and made the shot. But it's just, I like seeing him looking for opportunities like that again. It just feels like when he's had his struggles at this point in the year, it's largely come down to him just stopping looking for his opportunities to make an impact. We are going to touch on Frank Ntilikina in a moment here, but first, I just want to remind everyone to head to the knickswall.com, where you can check out our article that went up a couple of days ago from Tyler Marko. Parting with Frank Ntilikina might be best for both parties. Here to defend that point of view, we have the Knicks Wall's own Tyler Marko. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, guys. How's it going for you guys?
All's good over here. And it's an interesting, interesting time for your piece to go up a few days ago before Frank returned. And then we see today he comes in, he plays a couple of minutes. He played, the other day as well, but he comes in today, plays a few minutes, and he's once again re-injured, and all these question marks pop back up. But just when you picture Frank Ntilikina and this Knicks team, just what is it that comes to mind for you? What are your initial thoughts when you look at Frank and the Knicks fit?
Really, it's just frustration. Like, there's been so many just false starts. It seems like, the basic point I was trying to make in the piece is that in day or two before I wrote it, Berman reported that the team would be looking to maybe move him at the deadline if he doesn't show out in the last 10 games of the season. And really, my idea was just that's no way to handle your lottery pick from 2 years ago, and that if the team isn't going to, throw their full support behind him, that it's probably best for everyone just to move on.
I just don't think they're gonna use it. I just don't think they believe in him very much. It's what it comes down to. It just really doesn't seem like he's a priority. It's quite sad, and I think he is I don't think I've been hard on him for a while now, and I don't think he's had a very good year at all. I think he's been mostly bad, and but there are those flashes, like even the only full game he played against the Nuggets, like when he was out there just like running with the ball, and it was just him and Mitch going up and down the court, just kind of free flowing. That's when he was at his best. Everybody talks about this triangle bullshit with him. I think he's a better transition player, but you see and even some of those botched alleys that Mitch had. I mean, there was a lot of potential assists there on top of the 5 that he had in that game, and it's like there was a lot of just good ball movement in general. And what I'm trying to say is, I think he needs to just play with better players to actually look good. I think that kind of stinks because as a young player, that you don't always get that opportunity. But I think he's gonna, if they put him on a good team somewhere. We always joke around about the Spurs, but that's basically it. Like if he went to a team like the Spurs, I think they would figure it out basically. What they needed to do with him. I don't think they're far off. I really don't think he's far off from being a good player. It's just figuring out exactly how to utilize him at this point is just strange, and I don't think that the Knicks care to figure it out anymore.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just watching against the Nuggets, the team just looked better every time he was on the floor. I remember I watched the day after and just hearing Mike Breen say, they were down 14 at the half, but Frank was +7 in those minutes. So it's clear that he makes a difference when he's on court. It's just unfortunate that it looks so bad in the box score whenever, after every game.
It's been a stretch now. Like, I thought he played very well in the Nuggets game. He missed the shots. He picks up full court, and he's cutting down the amount of time other teams have to get into their offense on a consistent basis more than any other of the Knicks point guard. Like the one pass he made to Mitchell Robinson that he did miss the alley-oop, that was such a great read. And what Mudiay does, like Mudiay doesn't anticipate passes. We've used the quarterback. He doesn't throw players open. No. He just hits them when they're standing wide open. Frank, at times, he doesn't do it all the time, but he shows an ability to throw players open with his passes. He's a much higher IQ player than Mudiay. And really, the opportunity, we always talk about starting a culture and all that nonsense. And the thing Fizdale had a chance to establish this season was a good defense. And he's chosen not to. In 477 minutes, when Frank and Dotson have played together, the Knicks have a 102.6 defensive rating. That would be the best defensive rating in the entire NBA. God. When Frank and Mitchell Robinson are together, that's a 106.6. That's top 5, 10-ish. And when all three play together, it's a 98 defensive rating. That would be the best defensive rating by over 6 points. So the bullshit I've done this. All the bullshit Fizdale has talked about creating a culture and doing it. It's nonsense because there was a culture he could have created, and he could have built this team to be a good defensive team. Instead, he made them one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. Man, he sucks. I'm really tired.
Yeah, I mean, what was it just today against the Clippers? Like, how many more minutes than Mitch did Deandre play? And he had a good game for him, but there's just no reason to be playing DeAndre Jordan more than Mitch at this point. And just, real quick, going back to Frank on defense, that was really just, after buckets, he was just picking up Murray at three-quarters court, pointing to guys in transition, just doing all the little things you kind of notice. And, shout out to Black Messiah on Twitter. He pointed out that, last night the team had a 103.8 defensive rating with Frank on the court and 129 with him off. Like, it's obvious that he makes a huge difference on that end of the court, and we're not seeing it enough.
So I think one of the big questions that is in everybody's mind that is like Kyle was saying earlier, the Knicks in one way or another seem like they're almost destined to move him, regardless of if they get the proper return that they're looking for. The fresh start is something that's been mentioned in your piece and just, throughout the conversation that we were all having every day on this. But, you mentioned at the very end, like, a late first-round pick, and you say a late first-round pick for the player you took with the 8th pick 2 years ago isn't an efficient use of assets, but it's likely the best the team can hope for.
Yeah, I mean, and even, like, especially after, this injury and him missing more time, it's like you got to cross your fingers for something like that maybe. Like, I know there was interest in him at the deadline, but, nothing came of that, and who knows what, like, most teams are actually offering in exchange for him.
The Knicks haven't had a good defense in a decade. Why? I don't understand why they're just giving it away. Like, it's staring them right in the face, and they're just like, no, we don't want to do this. We want to keep being terrible at defense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not
One thing,
yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I was really surprised by, like, not surprised, but there was just such a wide variety of reaction on Twitter to the piece. There are people like, get him the hell out of here, and then people were like, no, we need to protect him at all costs. And you see that in general, but just kind of having it all congregated where there's just the whole spectrum where everyone's divided on it. It seems like there's no consensus.
It's just amazing to me how, like, lost of a season this has been,
Mm-hmm.
like beyond even things that are in his control. He's only played 42 games this season. And, like, whenever he has played, it's been in stretches, and then he gets injured, and then he misses more time than was anticipated for. There's just been, we've said this over and over again all year, all of last year, but there's just never been a clear-cut expectation for him to follow. There's never been a clear-cut role for him. There's never been a period of time he can get comfortable. And it's like Bryan was saying before, with Mitch and Dotson, you could have the three of them with Ntilikina as well. That is a solid young defensive core you can start grooming and, see how they develop around each other. It might just be so much that Frank needs some other players that he can grow with defensively, that he can find a role with, that he can find, places to fit on the court with. And it's frustrating because he's still such a, low cap hit and everything. He's only a little bit over $4 million for next year, I believe. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, giving up on him for the first round pick. If it's a late first round pick, you're still going to have to pay out some of that money anyway. It's not like you're getting, over $4 million in cap space back. And then, what value are you really getting from them? Are they capped essentially at what Ntilikina could be? Like, what kind of a shot are we taking here? It's really it's a confusing question to really place if this is all worth it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So with this new injury now, let's say that this keeps him out or I guess this re-aggravation, I should say. Let's say this keeps him out to the end of the year. Like, what do you think that does to his value? Do you think that could diminish it more than it is now, Tyler?
At this point, I really just have no idea where it could fall. It's almost like you can't imagine it falling lower, but the potential's still there. The potential's always been there. So, I mean, if I'm a smart team towards the end of the lottery, I'm definitely on the phone with them. Like, I know we just brought up the Spurs, but really any team down there could use a versatile defender like him. Good, like we're saying, needs to play with better players, better system, better coach. And I mean, I would give up a late first for him if I was, any team with, that had their shit together.
I feel like there's more interest in him than they're really letting on. I think people know that the Knicks are kind of undecided on him and don't want to play their cards quite yet. But I imagine that if he does truly become available, there's going to be, a number of suitors lined up, going after him.
Yeah, just hope they just don't take the first offer and actually hear everyone out this time.
Right, exactly. It's gonna end up being like 2 seconds or something like that. Or second and some other player that doesn't really make sense. That is really the worst case scenario here.
Yeah, and not to get way off topic, but I'm a Giants fan, or was. The Odell trade kind of shook me a little bit, and at this point, it's just like I just want what's best for Frank. I've been rooting for him since he came over, and he deserves better.
I'd really enjoy getting to see Frank with Booker, Mike Bridges, and DeAndre Ayton.
Yeah. Someone like Booker, I feel like, is a perfect match at guard for him.
Don't count Jimmer Fredette out of that mix either, by the way.
And then the Hawks fit, I would love for them. Like, one of those two teams. Like, if good things don't happen to the Knicks, the Suns, I can have easy access to watching, so I don't mind them being okay. And then the Hawks I'm going to turn this into the Hawks wall next year, possibly.
Look, I mean, not to jinx it or anything, knock on wood 100 times, but if there's anywhere Zion ends up that's not at the Garden, I want it to be Atlanta. If it could be Frank, Trey, and Zion down there in Atlanta.
God, what a fun team. Don't forget about Collins either.
Yeah, Collins, Herter. They've got a squad down there.
If they get Zion, they're a top 4 team in the East next year.
I mean, I guess I'm gonna that's gonna depend on the the offseason and stuff. But yeah, no, they've got a ceiling. Like they could easily be there.
I don't know whether or not Frank ends up coming back around the rest of the season. The Knicks only have 8 games left. They don't play again until Thursday, so I guess we'll have to see what his, how badly if they're shutting him down or whatnot. But I mean, you look at this Knicks schedule, it's kind of mixed. Like, there's definitely chances for the young guys to get some kind of easier opportunity run in here, but we're facing off against the Raptors, then the Heat for the rest of this week. They got Bulls, Magic, Rockets, Wizards, Bulls again, and Pistons to close out the season. I don't know. It's that I would like to see Trier get back. I would like to see. I would like to see Frank get back. I'd like to see Knox come back. Okay, I'm hoping that we can at least get 4 or 5 games at the end of the season here where we shut down these vets that are getting a lot of minutes right now. But I guess that's not really looking likely now, is it?
I mean, that's what we were saying after the deadline.
Yeah, it's a rough stretch here.
I'm just so bummed that we couldn't watch a lineup with Dennis Smith Jr. and Frank. That's just.
I mean, yeah, we're not even talking about Dennis Smith yet. Do we think he comes back anytime soon, or is he done?
He really threw his back out, apparently. At first, I thought he just had a strain or a tweak, or it was one of those sort of, quote unquote rest kind of nights. But then it was the second night and the third night, and now feels like 2 weeks, right? He's been out a minute now, it feels like.
Was the Kings game the last time he played, or did he play after? That's the early March. He had to play after that. But yeah, he's been out a good chunk of time now.
And it's just, I thought we were finally going to get the Frank Dennis minutes, and it's just, that could have been fun. And nobody even knows if Frank's going to suit up for the rest of the year now. So
yeah.
Fizdale did make it it was more precautionary than serious after the game, based on what I read. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I would hope so. I would hope that that's the case, because he just missed 24 games with that. And I remember, did you guys see that thing? LeBron's physical trainer or physical therapist posted about the groin injuries. And she's like, yeah, these take months to heal. This is supposed to take 6 months to heal. And, he got back on the court in 6 weeks. And then it made me think well, Frank was out 24 games. That was 2 months he missed basically. And I was like, that's, maybe he needed more time. Maybe he needed another month to like really get back. But that's my first thought was maybe it was more serious than we were led to, believe. It wasn't just some BS little groin injury, and maybe he really did hurt it again. But if that's the case, I'm glad.
Can I throw in some positivity here?
Please, we need it. We need it.
Much needed.
Okay, I'm gonna go tea leaves real quick for us.
Oh, quick tea leaves. We didn't expect this today, but here we are.
No. So we saw that the Celtics lost 115-96 to the Spurs and got absolutely smoked. Some Celtics reporter tweeted, Kyrie headed to the locker room with about 20 seconds left on the clock.
He did that. He did that against Charlotte too the other day.
That cross country flight really fixed everything for Boston.
I've been reconsidering refollowing Bill Simmons just to bask in it.
It's a real shame that Brad Einstein's out there coaching for his job again. Just you hate to see it. He invented the game of basketball and he can't beat the Spurs at home.
Can we end this segment with this right now? I just saw, and this is how we will transition into our tournament preview from here. We'll bring in Mike Cortez for that. But Mariano on Twitter, that's 2 N's and 2 O's at the end, tweeted out that Zion is half Blastoise, half man. And that is the most accurate description of Zion Williamson I've ever seen.
That's good.
All right. Tyler Marko, you write for the Knicks Wall. We are delighted that you do. Delighted about your piece on what we could potentially get for Frank. I guess delighted is not really the word to use there because it's not a rosy outlook, but we thank you for writing it.
Thanks, guys.
Plug your Twitter real quick because I couldn't find your handle.
Yeah, it's just my name, Tyler Marko, Marko, not CO. And follow me.
We will talk to you again soon, man.
All right. Happy to be on. Can't wait to be back, guys.
All right.
Thanks
Take
a lot.
care.
See you later.
Thanks again to Tyler Marko for coming on. Now we bring on another member of the Knicks Wall family here again to update you on all things NCAA Tournament, all things NBA Draft. We have Mike Cortez. What's going on, dude?
What's going on, man?
Follow him at Cortez Era on Twitter. Mike, we're getting pretty deep into the tournament now.
Yes.
I guess we can start with the old cliche bracket question. Did you make a bracket this year?
Yeah.
Did your bracket hold up? How long did it hold up for?
It's actually still in good shape. My Final Four is still intact, and I'm looking at it right now. I think I only missed on Michigan State. I said Louisville would beat Michigan State. That obviously didn't happen.
So that's correct because I picked them to win it all, and that's exactly what's going to happen. What's your Final Four looking like again?
Duke, Tennessee, UNC, and who do I have in the West? And Michigan.
So I'm gonna kind of throw the reins to Bryan here for a second. I kind of wanted you and Mike have been the two who are the most keyed in on the tournament right now. Give me what should be the byline of this right now? What are the first impressions? I'm not really watching the tournament very closely, so what if I were to go tune into a game tomorrow? What should I know so far?
Very top heavy. There's a clear distinction between the chalk teams you thought would be good and kind of the rest of the field. It's been a really chalky tournament. It's like usually we get surprises. Like he said, his bracket's good. I would bet 95 to like upwards of 85 to 90% of people's brackets are all good right now because it's all top seeds moving on. So even if you like picked an upset, like most people don't pick that upset to go all the way. So pretty much every like Final Four contender that you would have expected going into this is still alive.
Yeah, it's what you want to aim for in the brackets is just to get those, like you said, the upsets usually happen just in the first round. And so far, I think all the top players have performed. I haven't seen any real choke jobs. I mean, Fletcher McGee's not really a star to me, so I would exclude him. But like Culver, Zion, Ja, they were all good.
Yeah, I had a ton of fun watching Ja. He's just, I mean, he ran out of gas in that game against Florida State, but that first half, he was just pulling up from wherever he wanted and just drilling shots. I think he made, like 5 of his first 6 threes or something stupid.
Yeah.
And just watching him pass is a joy. He kind of gives me the Trae Young vision vibes, just the way he's young and kind of bouncy, the way he moves around the court, and then he's just flinging it wherever he wants it to go. And he's just a lot of fun. If it came to it and the Knicks picked him, I'd be, very happy. Obviously disappointed, as we all would be if we don't get Zion. But if we ended up with like the second or third pick and got Ja, I'd be pretty happy with that.
Mike,
Yeah.
with his kind of, with his tournament down now and his college career being over, do you project him to be like pretty clear number 2 pick now at this point, or does he still have a lot of competition behind Zion for that spot?
To me, I think he separated himself. If anything, Culver might be gaining steam, I think, maybe. I'm still higher on RJ, but I think Ja hit everything that we were looking for. He took over against Marcus Howard, which was supposed to be a duel. He dominated.
Mm-hmm.
And then against FSU, he ran out of gas, but he's also, I think he scored, 20? He scored more than 20 points.
Yep.
And a lot of it was outside shooting, but there were some moments he went right at that 7'4" dude like nothing. So he does, like Kyle said, he does have that Trae Young feel. I think it's Trae Young, De'Aaron Fox hybrid type stuff I see with him. So
that's interesting.
yeah, he's
got some Fox in his game.
Yeah, but he has like the passes, like Trae Young, like that full court pass he made against Marquette. That was like very Trae Youngish.
Was that the over the head one?
Yeah, he flipped.
Yeah, that one was so good.
And then there's a moment where he turns the corner. It's like, holy shit, that's Fox.
Yeah, when he went baseline a couple of times. I think one time for a dunk, it's like on a dime, He just cuts and he goes, and he's just a lot of fun to watch. I really would be fine if the Knicks ended up with him. I'd get a great kick out of watching him in our uniform.
Another guy's only 19 too.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a baby.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, there's just a lot of potential that's flying around out there. What are some of the other players that we should be keeping an eye out now? I'm looking at things from the NBA draft perspective, but I mean, just from a pure entertainment standpoint, who's been probably the most exciting in this tournament so far?
Texas Tech has been beating the shit out of people, so I want to see how they look like Michigan. So that's going to be a great matchup.
Depends what kind of basketball. If you liked Knicks 90s basketball, Texas Tech and Michigan is right there for you, buds.
Hey,
any old Knicks 90s fans, if you just want to watch two teams grind a game to a halt, that is your game.
I think it's going to be oddly entertaining. And Culver's got the whole old school look. He has like the old school basketball shorts. He's just like slow, but he gets his shot off. He's actually been a lot better to watch now that I've got to see him like day after day. So I'm warming up to him at like 3 or 4.
Yeah, the more I see him, the more I like him. I guess my question, because I've seen him start to go up as high as like 2, which is where we're starting to see him, is like 2 or 3. And I think you noted the lowest you've seen him is like 7. So I guess, is he sort of a hard upside guy to project? Like, is he more of like a safer pick versus like an RJ where, he's a little more volatile right now, but, you think he's going to project to be a more high impact star type of player? Like, what do you see for his ceiling, or are there any concerns on that end of it?
I think he's just really safe. I think, like, I've heard Chris Middleton a lot. I agree with it. Like, where he's going to be a blue collar all-star. Like, I'm not sure he's going to be, like, if he's your best player, I don't know where you're going to, like, you might be like middle of the playoffs in the East, but he's also Excuse me. He's also like a good second or third player.
Yeah.
I mean, he plays good off the ball. So
Him and Brandon Clark are the two guys that you're kind of like, all right, if you miss out on Zion, then I think Culver with Morant, and then you like Barrett and Clark is starting to get some noise in that too. We talked about him a little last time though. Did that 30-point 5-block game, did that reinforce anything, or you learn anything new from that one?
No. It just reinforced what we talked about last week, where he's not Zion by any means, but if you envision the team with that type of power forward, I think Clark's a very solid option, especially if you're at 5.
We talk about all these. We were talking about Jarret Culver so far. We're talking about the Texas Tech team, and we have obviously Zion Williamson up ahead. We haven't talked about so much, but like looking at him and looking at his teammates, who are probably definitely the most hyped team coming into this season, and his teammates now. Previously some of them looking at number 2, number 3 in the NBA draft were being called for, but you have these other players like Morant and Culver who are emerging now. What are you making of the rest of the Duke starting lineup now at this point? Are they still as highly valued as, say, before this tournament started?
Cam's kind of just been like overall just underwhelming. Like today he was good, I think, and he still just had, I think, 13 points maybe. He's just been very like off. He has the shot attempts, he just doesn't produce enough. RJ gets unnecessary hate no matter what he does. Like for some reason he's just the prospect everyone wants to nitpick. But personally I still think amongst like NBA people he's probably still 2-3 range. And Cam probably fell to like 5, 6, maybe even as low as 7, depending on who's picking.
Cam terrifies me.
He looks like Kevin Knox. Like he's like he'll show up for a spurt and then he'll just completely disappear.
Duke hot take. They're really not. They're a crazy talented team, but they're really not that good. I think Michigan State is going to beat them if they play.
Yeah, they remind me of if like an NBA version of them would probably be like the first year LeBron went to the Heat. It's just 3 stars and then a bunch of nothing. Because,
yeah,
Trey Jones was atrocious, man.
He was.
Shooting wise, he was just atrocious. And like, if it's not Zion or RJ or Cam, they're not really scoring.
Yeah, who's the other guard that he's just? They have 2 guards who can't shoot.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's who it was. 14. Basically they left him and they left Trey Jones open the entire time, daring them to shoot. As Taco sat in the middle of the paint. Just he wasn't coming out, and these guys just aren't shooting. What guards on this team? How do you have 2 point guards who can't shoot from outside? I don't understand.
Yeah, and they shot 33% from 3 for the year. Like everyone's talking about the end of that game today. If Duke hit like 10 of 25 from 3, that was 40%. If they lose that game if they don't have an outlier 3-point shooting game.
Yeah, Zion hit 3 out of 5. I think he finished like 3 for 6. That's not going to happen again, or very unlikely.
Yeah, he was shooting a little bit more. I think he was tired of dealing with Taco.
Taco, I was actually impressed. Besides his free throws, I was like, oh, this guy is not terrible.
Yeah, he moves better than I expected him to. I thought he was going to be a little bit more clunky. I mean, he is, but I thought it was going to be like drastic, and he actually got around pretty well, especially defensively. I was pretty impressed.
I feel like he could be like the next Boban, like just like a funny guy who happens to come in late in a couple games, just like dunks and blocks everything.
He would be a good like change of pace guy.
Great name too.
A fantastic. You could do so much with that.
So Kyle, you weren't here on the last one where we had Joe on with Mike, but you so we never got your picks from you. What are obviously you're not going to beat out on my Final Four of Duke, and Michigan, but please enlighten us on what your Final Four is looking like this year.
So I always get murdered with these brackets. I actually started out really hot this year. I think I got my first I think it was something stupid. I got like my first 10 out of 12 picks or something like that. I was just, but then the South region I got murdered in the South. Everything else still looks pretty good, but I had Nova, which was wrong, and then I had Duke, Michigan, and UNC, and then I had Duke and UNC in the championship, and then I had Duke winning it because I believe in my son Zion Williamson, and I want him to do well and ride that momentum into winning a title with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving next summer or next year, and pull off the little Magic Johnson championship in college, championship in the NBA move. I want that for my child there. So that's it. I mean, normally I get smoked because I don't know enough about college basketball, but that's basically it. I've watched basically Murray State and Duke exclusively this year, and then I try to get Culver when I can. So,
well, alrighty. So, what? Give me the takeaways here. What are we walking away with on this pod until the next time we talk to Mike here? We're going to have the tournament's gonna look quite a bit different from here. So, what? Give me your predictions for I guess the rest of this week.
I don't see Duke's making the Final Four. I don't know why.
Wow, that's a big take.
I don't know. It's just the gut feeling. I think they'll get past. I don't know. I feel like Virginia Tech would be the team that would just like beat them for some stupid reason. But aside from that, I think the top teams are going to still eat.
Any objections to that, Bryan? You're pretty much aligned with that?
I still think North Carolina can be beat if they. So who did they get? Who are they getting in the Sweet 16?
Auburn.
Do they have?
No, Auburn.
No. I'm asking. Do they?
Oh.
Can they take advantage? Are they a team that can take advantage of May defensively and really expose him?
I don't really know them that well. The only time I saw them, they had almost that collapse, New Mexico State, and that was just ugly. But I think they're just solid.
I guess that's going to hold us over until the next time. But thanks a lot to Mike Cortez for joining the pod today. Make sure you're following him. Keep up with him at Cortez Era. Takes over the TKW Twitter account on some Saturdays when we have some games going on too. So keep a lookout for that. And we'll talk to you again very soon, I'm sure, Mike.
Perfect. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Take it easy, Mike. Thanks.
And really quick before we get out of here today, I just want to remind everybody to head to theknickswall.com. Again, you can check out Tyler Marko's piece on Frank. We have plenty of other exciting articles up at the moment as well. Recaps from today's game against the Clippers. Follow all of us on Twitter at Corbo Anthony, at Kyle Maggio, at Bryan Gibberman. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on wherever you're listening to this right now. Love the reviews. Love the comments. Keep them coming. We'll talk to you all later on in the week.